Who is your daddy? I am your father.
You fathers will understand.
My father taught me many things.
I got an idea. How about you all sit there quietly while I make dad noises?
All right, here we are with episode 95 of Fathers of the Grind. Sorry we are a little bit late. That's completely my fault. Derek had every opportunity to record with someone else if he wanted to, but I guess he realized the show can't go on without his co-host.
Well,
now, I did a show once without him, and it went fine. But
well, I was told that I do not have the ability to host. They said that I was not good enough. It was literally the white man said I was not good enough.
I was going to take credit for it. I was going to say I didn't really mean it when I said it. Okay, I was just angry. I was emotional.
No, it was Jesse White. The white man came down on me.
Calling him right out. That's right. That's right. So for most of you, this is usually the day when you have the episode. Instead, this is when we're recording it. But the good news is that means we get to do some quick and relevant reactions to Sony's press conference today. We'll do that first. We'll talk about a rundown of most of their quick announcements. We'll go through that relatively quickly, I think, unless we get sidetracked by something that we're excited about. And then we're going to spend the rest of the time talking about Super Mario Odyssey. Now, the plan is for next week's episode to take a deep dive into Assassin's Creed Origins, which I just purchased today, and I'll have time to play it before we record next. And I know Derek's been playing that a lot and loving it, but we're going to skip that talk for today, for this week. We're not going to talk about other stuff we're playing, just news from the press conference with Sony, and then we'll talk about Super Mario Odyssey. And then next week, you'll hear a little wider range of what we're playing and Assassin's Creed. So let's jump right into the news. Although we don't usually do news, I thought we should react to some of the big stuff from today.
No, I think this is good. Yeah.
So this week is Paris Games Week, and I don't think this is typically an event where companies will have a big press conference and announce a ton of stuff. I know sometimes you'll get an announcement here or there. Maybe a developer might do something, but for the most part, it is not nearly as big as E3 or some of the other events that go on. But this year, Sony kind of teased everyone saying, hey, E3 was just the first half of what we have to show you this year. Paris Games Week, it continues, and then PSX, it'll wrap up for this year. So it sounds like they've got some exciting stuff they want to keep talking about. And in my opinion, they delivered because their E3 showing, as you and I talked about, was a little bit lacking in terms of what's coming up next, don't you think? So
yeah, it felt like the joke was on the internet. It was a remastered version of 2016. And that was everything that they announced in 2016. They just showed more of, but then didn't give you like details, like didn't tell you when it was coming out and things like that. So I would say this show is almost a remaster of a remaster, but there are some major highlights that made me love it way more than even E3. But we'll go over that.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that. So let's start off with the announcement that you texted me about it right away. I could tell you were in tears. You are so excited.
Yeah, can't wait.
The first thing they had during their pre-show where they announced a few things was Drinkbox Studios is making Guacamelee 2. And I know you just can't wait for that.
Well, I mean, that was my favorite platformer ever. I mean,
sure.
It actually surpassed Ori and the Blind Forest. It's just an amazing game of trash, and I hate it with all the hate I can hate a game.
You are so wrong on this. This is a great game. But I'll say this. As I watched the trailer for Guacamelee 2, Guacamelee 2 does not look like it's that different. It looks very much like Guacamelee 1, which on the one hand, that's a good thing because fans of it loved it. I did like it a lot too. But I'm wondering what makes this a sequel. And so I guess we'll find out. I guess they introduced a few gameplay mechanics that look a little new, but boy, it doesn't look all that different at all from what I can tell. But
I got that game for free, and I played it for like 30 seconds, and was like, this is stupid.
It gets really fun. You do unlock some cool attack abilities. And plus, it looks like in this one, you get to be this super kung fu chicken. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, Guacamelee 2 is coming out. Please be excited. Also, I feel like there was another. Oh, Spelunky 2. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. Those were the two I know you're most pumped about.
Oh yeah.
What did you think about the Hong Kong Massacre? It was a brand new game that was revealed. It looks like an overhead shoot 'em up type of a game, kind of like Hotline Miami, except the graphics are very realistic. It looks like a 3D game, but an overhead view as you're battling. What do you think about that one?
It kind of looked like Hotline Miami and Max Payne combined.
Yeah.
And so I enjoy Max Payne, and I'll admit, as I was watching it, I was like, this is pretty cool. When are they going to pan down and actually show me a good game instead of the over-top view? So Kyle Neely posted about it, saying he thought it looked awesome, and then my comment on that post was, I don't hate it. So for an indie, and just looking at it for the first time, I'm not going to call it trash, only because it does look more modern, and it does have like that Max Payne spin to it. But more than likely, this is not. I don't like top-down shooters, so more than likely, this is not something I would ever play.
It intrigued me because I did like Hotline Miami, but this looks like a very realistic take on that. Like you could even see the way his arms are moving as he was shooting. It looked like they put a lot of care into the visuals, so kind of intriguing.
Yeah.
Hong Kong Massacre comes out sometime next year. They had another one. I think it was called The Gardens Between. I might have named that incorrectly. Basically, it's two friends.
It looks
It's a
stupid.
very, very indie game, and I was not that interested. But you might be into it. Comes out in 2018 as well. It's kind of a co-op puzzle game, it looks like. Loco Roco 2 Remastered, now in 4K.
Yes!
So now you can finally see all the Ks.
Yeah.
Huh?
Now I'll play it only because it's No. It's
Comes out
another
December 9th
stupid
if you were
game.
a fan of those kind of platform puzzler games. The Sims 4 is coming to PS4, including all the free updates and I believe some of the expansions as well on November 17th. So if you're into The Sims, or if you're like me and that was one of the few doorways to get your non-gaming significant other into gaming, Sims is one of those areas I finally got my wife to game for a little while back in the day. So maybe that's something you want to play and you don't have a PC. So there you go. Comes to the PS4. There was a game, so they announced a whole bunch of PSR stuff. Now, PSVR stuff. Now, some of this was rehashing what they mentioned at E3 and digging in a little bit more. Some of it was brand new. I believe these next two are brand new. One was called Megalith. I think that's the name of it. It's where you are a Titan monster. And so basically you take the role of this giant monster and it says basically, in 2018, become a god. So the idea is that you've got these ultra powers of a Titan. So that one looks kind of interesting, actually. I like when they use the kind of Greek mythology type of lore. I don't know if it's going to be Greek mythology, but I still like that kind of stuff. The other one they showed off was Bow to Blood, and that is another PSVR game with lots of airship battles. It looks kind of stylish. It kind of reminded me, the graphic style reminded me of, what's that pirate one coming out for the Xbox?
Why am I drawing a
Sea of
blank?
Thieves.
Yeah.
The art style kind of reminded me of that, except you're all up in the air. And there was some first-person shooting there. It looks like it could be interesting there, too. And then they showed Ultra Wings VR. It's a PSVR game. I'm not kidding. It looks like an old version of Pilot Wings. Much less charming. It's a very bland world, and the graphics overall, the textures looked awful. It didn't even look like it was like a stylized art. It looked bad. So I was surprised that they even bothered to show that. It was one of the few low points in this presentation.
Yeah.
I'll talk about three other PSVR games real quick, and then get your thoughts on all of those, and just want to hear what you think about PSVR in general. Sprint Vector, some kind of rollerblading game. My video cut out during a lot of this, so I missed what it looked like, but it looked a little bit like a Tronish type of a game with color, and I know a lot of like rollerblading and tricks are involved. There's a game called Moss, which they talked about at E3. It is also a PSVR game, but it's a third-person game in VR. Now I'm kind of interested, because you still use your virtual reality headset to look around and see the environment, but you're using your controller and your analog stick to control this little mouse and explore this kind of forest, woodland type of area. It actually looks pretty good. The visuals looked pretty sharp. I liked the lighting, and the combat looked like it could be kind of fun. This little platform adventure comes out in February of this coming year. And then Star Child, another PSVR game. I don't know a ton about it, but they keep talking about it, keep showing trailers. Looks kind of interesting, I guess. So, what do you think about their PSVR stuff?
I saved it. Well, my feed didn't go out or anything, but I was the same as you. And that's once I knew they were doing the VR stuff, and I was at work, I just kind of cut off, and then I came back after it. So that should tell you how I feel about PlayStation VR. Most of this stuff just doesn't interest me. I get that gaming in general is a gimmick, but I really feel like these games, most of them, are a gimmick because what I really wanted with VR was to sit down, put the headset on, and use a DualShock controller and actually be put in a triple A experience game. And I really don't feel like they've done that except for like Resident Evil 7, which is the one game that you could do that to that I wouldn't want you to do that to just because that game was scary enough without a freaking headset on. I don't need to be in the game to experience the scariness. So I feel like Resident Evil 7 is the only game with VR that they've done that I would care about, like really, really care about. There's cool experiences, don't get me wrong. I've played a few, and there's even some when they were doing the VR sell, there's this like one game. It sounded like it was like completely online. I could be wrong though, but it was basically like you hold like a paddle and you hit the ball back and forth. So it's like another ping pong type experience, but it's real competitive, real fast paced. It looked cool, but I won't buy it because I'm like, none of these are worth to me more than $10 because they're just little experiences that I would play every once in a while. They're not anything like a Wolfenstein 2 or a Mario Odyssey, Assassin's Creed, where I just want to sit down and play it for hours upon hours. These are just little experiences. So that's my stance on VR. I don't hate it, but I do feel like it was a waste of money for me, and I still don't even have it hooked up anymore. So
my take on it is, as someone who was not sold on it initially, as everyone who's listened knows, and someone who is, I'm still open to being convinced by Sony or some other company that VR is the way to go. But when I see the experiences that they're starting to put up for VR, and this presentation showed a few of those, compared to some of the other experiences they showed in this presentation, as well as some of the experiences that I'm currently having, I'm like, why would I bother putting this headset? Why would I bother spending more money when I can experience Mario Odyssey and Assassin's Creed Origins and all these other amazing games, and a few others we'll talk about shortly. And then I compare them up to these games that look like, essentially, like you said, gimmicks, very short-lived games, things I might spend $10-15 on. Indie games at best. None of them look like true, amazing, involved experiences where I can't wait to get the headset back.
I just don't know why
that's
they
my take
can't.
on it. I'm still waiting for that thing because I'm not a Resident Evil fan, as we've talked about. Too spooky and too gory isn't my thing. That being said, I'm waiting for that moment where they finally show you have to experience this in VR. And here's what it is the only way to experience it. All right, I'm there. Maybe I'm missing it, and I'll admit that. If you're listening and you're like, no, you're missing it, here's what it is, throw it at me. I'd love to hear what it is that I'm not seeing with PSVR. I just don't see the draw yet.
Like even
cool
like
technology, but I just
like
don't see the draw
Skyrim and Doom and all that stuff, like those sound like, oh, that would be cool, or even Fallout. But they take the controller away from you, and they're like, no, like flick yourself over here. Like I'm like, no, I just want to walk and let my head be my head. Why is that so difficult? Why do you have to tack on all this unnecessary stuff? Like, why would I want to play Skyrim and flick myself somewhere? I want to just walk. So I just don't get it. Maybe I'm missing something. I pride myself on not being overly ignorant and educating myself. But with VR, I've yet to grasp why they cannot just go, we're going to make a AAA experience with a freaking controller, and your headset is your head. So where you look is where the character looks, and everything else is played the exact same. I don't know.
Yep. Agreed. They also showed off a game called Invector, which is kind of like Amplitude if you're into rhythm games. And then in between all this PSVR stuff, they did show Final Fantasy 15 episode Ignis. Comes out December 13th.
Looks pretty fast-paced and crazy.
Does that have a PSVR component? Is that why it was shown in that mix, you think?
They said on the screen VR available, like they were saying it's available for this part. I don't know.
Yeah, they showed it, and I kind of tried to keep track of these in some sort of order. Pretty sure they showed that one, and then they went to Invector, which was another PSVR game. So interesting that they did it in that order.
Yeah.
But there you go. If you're a Final Fantasy 15 fan, regardless of whether or not you play with the VR headset, episode Ignis comes out December 13th. Invector, by the way, if you're into Amplitude, that's a 2018 game as well. Then they showed a Journey / Abzu style game about a girl who turns into a flying dragon. You and I love these kind of games. I know we take a crap on these kind of games all the time, but some of our listeners like them. It's called Ore, O-U-R-E.
Ure. It's Ure.
Ure, not
Because I was actually going to make a joke on our page and tag Sasan and say Sasan's new favorite game, Uge. But
So it's Ure, and it is indeed out now. So I do like when they do that, although it's too bad it's not a game I'm interested in. But very kind of scenic and sad looking, and you're this girl who can jump and turn into a flying dragon serpent thing that flies through the sky. So there you go. Spelunky 2 is coming to PS4. I don't believe it's going to be an exclusive. That's the kind of game that's on everything. A lot of these I don't think will be totally exclusive.
yeah.
But you never know. But that's coming out soon. If you like those roguelikes, if you like Spelunky, go for it. It wasn't really my thing, but I do see how people would enjoy it. Now we're at the good stuff. This is the good stuff.
Yeah.
So what they did is they did this little pre-show thing, and Spelunky 2 was their favorite reveal. They held on to that to the end, which was kind of a bummer. And then they jumped into the real, what they call it, the media showcase.
Yeah.
They jumped into the media showcase, and they started it off with a new game from, and I didn't know who it was at first. It showed it at the end from Sucker Punch. It's this, what I assume is an action samurai game. I don't know if there's action, but I imagine there's got to be with what they showed.
Yeah.
It's called Ghosts of Tsushima. I don't know how to say this. No release date given. That's okay. I'm just thrilled to see what it is they're working on. I'm kind of glad it's a brand new IP. I'm excited for this.
Yeah. I needed them to move on from
from Infamous.
Or from
Yep.
Infamous.
Yep. And I'm not that I don't ever want another Infamous game. I do in the future because those are fun. But I'm glad to see, just like with Guerrilla, seeing them do something different with Horizon. I'm excited to see what they do with Ghosts of Tsushima. Anyway, it's a samurai game. It looks very gritty, very serious. And it also, I recognized the voice right away. There was a villain who's talking to what I assume is the main character, and then it zooms in on his digitalized face, and it's very clearly the actor who played, what's his name? Not Genghis Khan, Kublai Khan from the Marco Polo series on Netflix that had an untimely and too soon of an end. That guy's a great actor. Really, really good. So I'm glad they got some real actors to do it. It looks really cool, very exciting, and I am pumped for Ghosts of Tsushima. Just add it to to my list of yet another game to look forward to.
Yeah, and that's easily, I think, what took this showcase to the next level for me personally over Sony's E3 or PlayStation's E3 this year. And that was because they basically showed us a new AAA game. They didn't give us a date or anything, but that's fine, like you said.
Yep.
But I did watch, I think it was Game Trailers, was doing interviews. Well, this was pre-done before the show. So this was planned for the show to come out, the showcase to come out, and then Game Trailers released all these interviews that they did with a bunch of the Sony partners. And one of them was with Sucker Punch, and they were talking about the game, and they've been working on this game for 3.5 years. So I'm thinking this game could be a 2018, at latest early 2019, which is really cool because this, to me, bringing Jesse White back up, this type of game, just looking at first glimpse, is my Hellblade. Like, this is something where I'm going to track it and I'm going to watch it. Sucker Punch is not my favorite developer. They make good games, but they're not my favorite. They usually screw them up, especially on the story side and sometimes with the acting, which you were talking about how they got a very good voice actor for what looks to be the villain. But at the same time, they're very hit and miss in a lot of things. But so was Guerrilla Games for me. Like, I liked some of the Killzone stuff, but I didn't like all of them.
Absolutely agree.
So I'm kind of hoping that
and when they finally shift gears, it's like, whoa, they can do a good job with something different.
I'm hoping that this is them getting more time. Think about it. This is 3.5 years by the time it releases, maybe 4.5, 5 years with a PS4 that they've already worked on before. So this is going to be better in at least the visual side. But yeah, so this is definitely game of the show. I'm real excited about it. I think it's a really cool game.
No gameplay shown though, from what we can tell.
Well, they showed quick cut scenes, which was clearly not like actual gameplay, but it kind of gave you an idea that this was going to probably play like a third-person action.
I got Onimusha vibes personally.
Yeah.
Whereas
I imagine
the
they're
look
not
and
going to make it like Nier Automata where it's like real fast, DMC type combat. But I think it's going to be pretty fast paced. I think it's going to be third person. It's open world, so hopefully it will be. And this is all speculation. Hopefully this will be more detailed than. I should say not detailed because then you start to think of looks. But hopefully it'll be more of a open world from like the sense of like The Witcher 3 or even Assassin's Creed Origin, which I'm playing now, where basically almost everybody's interactive. You can go in almost every building, that type of stuff. One of the things with what was the stupid game we were just talking about that they
Ghosts
made?
of Tsushima?
No.
With Infamous. Yeah,
Infamous.
Second Son?
Infamous, their worlds are cool, like they look pretty, but you can't interact with anything. Like you can't go in a building.
Yeah, like they had the city of Seattle, but it was all just blocks essentially that you're outside.
That's all it was.
Yep.
So I'm hoping this game will be different, that it will be a true open world game where you can go and interact, do things, and really get involved with the world.
I mean, think about it. Second Son was at the very start of the PS4 life cycle, which we're coming up on 5 years for this thing, I think.
Yeah.
Or maybe 4 years, whatever. It's been a lot.
This is year 4, so probably by the time the game comes out, it'll be 5 years.
So think about the difference it's going to be with them knowing the hardware then, which they didn't know super well, right? I assume, compared to how they would know it now. I think it's going to be a dramatic increase in quality all across the board. So I'm excited for that one.
Very excited.
That was one I'm very excited to keep an eye on. They also showed a game called Concrete Genie. Kind of reminded me the animation a little bit of the kid from Big Hero 6.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of had a really cool Disney cartoon look to it, but the gameplay looks to be very much. It does not look like an action game at all. It looks like a more adventure / painting or puzzle game. There's a kid with magic paintbrush who brings his imagination to life. It's a very dark city that he's in, some kind of dark neighborhood, and these bullies are picking on him. And I wanted to make sure I put in there sad / just for you, because these bullies are picking on him. But I don't know what this is about. It's kind of interesting. I have a feeling it's going to be more in the what's that shooter? I'm really blanking out on stuff tonight. The Xbox One game that they just updated looks a little better now. Recore. I feel like it's going to be in that Recore vibe where it's like, oh, it's kind of charming, but maybe not the best video game. But it's kind of a charming setting and look. Yeah. That's kind of the vibe I got from it, but we'll see. Concrete Genie, no release date for that either. Then they showed, I know Sony's excited about this PlayLink adventure game where there's these live action scenes. It's called Erica, and you see all these things that are acted out, and you make a decision, and then you see the scene play out after that. Interesting concept. I know that a few years ago people loved that game, Her Story, I think it was called, where it was acted out by a real actress. And so this kind of looks to be that type of experience. So if you're into that, look forward to that one. I don't know when. I'm not sure when that one comes out either. They did show another PSVR game. They did a couple PSVR sizzle reels, and one that jumped out at me was called Blood and Truth, because it had to me like a Getaway vibe. I loved that old game, The Getaway, back in the day. Very much like a Guy Ritchie heist movie set in London. And it had that vibe to it, where you're just shooting people and guys are swearing at you with their thick downtown London accents. And I thought it looked kind of interesting. That's one of the few VR experiences that I might that kind of turns my head a little bit. So Blood and Truth, that's what that one's called.
Yeah.
They Bungie announced the official release date for Curse of Osiris, the upcoming Destiny 2 expansion. Comes out December 5th. So if you're like me and you've already kind of faded away from Destiny 2, I think Derek even a little bit, there's a good reason to jump back in.
Yeah, I'll definitely be back on December 5th. Yeah. And I was also going to say, not only does it look cool, but I feel like it's the perfect time to release this. You're basically about 3 months after the launch of Destiny 2, and you're a month after all the big releases from 2017 have come out. Yep. So I feel like that's when you're going to hit people
bringing people back in right at the end of the year.
I felt like that was really smart of them.
Yep. Yeah, good timing. And then, of course, they had a wide variety of new trailers for existing games that we knew about, but I wanted to touch on a few of them before we talk about Mario Odyssey. The first one, and this isn't necessarily in order, but they did show a Far Cry 5 trailer, a pretty short one, but they're going to do some expanded online co-op for that, which looks like a lot of fun. But in general, this game just looks amazing. It looks like it's going to be so much fun. It's going to be violent and disturbing, but a blast. And I think Far Cry 5, it's going to be one of those games that comes out swinging for 2018. I think it's going to be one of the best early games.
Yeah,
I think it's a February
one
game,
of
right?
the 2018 games. There's a ton of them that I'm real excited for, and the main reason is because the fact that it's fully co-op. Like I went to a link today and was kind of checking out. It's a frequently asked questions page for the co-op, and so they were just giving basically details of how the co-op works, and it sounds like exactly what I want. Everything in the game is co-op. It's not limited to certain missions. If I'm playing my game and you join me, it's my world, my game. It doesn't impact your world or your game, but your character levels up. So let's say you're a level 8 when you enter my world. We play for a few hours. You become level 10. When you go back to your game, you might have been a level 8 in your game, but now you're a level 10. So you're
Isn't
obviously
that how
more,
Ghost Recon Wildlands was too?
yeah.
So I mean, Ubisoft has taken a play out of their own playbook for that one. So good.
Yeah.
Good. They did show a brief trailer for Star Wars Battlefront 2. Again, looking great. Well, remains to be seen if that single-player experience delivers, but of course it looks beautiful. Same thing with Call of Duty World War II. Looks absolutely amazing. Like it seriously looks like video of a World War II battle. It's almost to the point now where it looks like the Band of Brothers footage. I mean, it's just so good looking. So, 2 shooters that are coming out next month. So a lot for you there if you're a first-person shooter fan. They showed a brand new trailer. As far as I'm concerned, I haven't seen this trailer before, for Spider-Man from Insomniac.
Yeah,
And
it's definitely new.
I thought it looked great. They showed a lot of actual gameplay moments. You could see the button prompts on the screen as you're trying to stop this helicopter from crashing and doing some actual battles. It looked like some stealth stuff with Mary Jane, perhaps, and some other things that were happening. So, in a little more in-depth insight into who the villain is and the fact that you've got a relationship with this guy as maybe a mentor or a teacher. Pretty classic Spider-Man villain. But it looks great. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. I have no idea what the combat's going to feel like, but I was getting a little bit of, Batman Arkham type vibes in terms of a lot of enemies around and you're doing quick reactions and combos and counters. But who knows? Who knows? Hopefully the combat feels as good as it looks, because it looks really good.
Yeah, that game looks really, really good. And that's another 2018. So you've got Far Cry 5, Spider-Man.
Yep.
We're going to hit on God of War, Detroit. I mean, we're just loaded for 2018.
Yep. So Spider-Man looked good. The new Detroit trailer was heart-wrenching, man.
It was really good. Really good.
And this isn't a spoiler as far as I'm concerned. If you're really concerned, skip ahead about a minute and a half. But the trailer essentially was this single dad who's clearly has a drinking problem. He's very abusive and aggressive. Mm-hmm. He has a daughter, and he brings this android in to kind of help take care of the home and take care of the daughter. And of course, as things unfold, the lady discovers all these things have happened, and this girl, she's in danger. This guy is a menace, and he's violent, and he gets drunk, and you see one thing play out where things do not go well. And then, of course, as the game is set up, you can choose all these different paths and see all these different results. And it looks fascinating and heartbreaking. I feel like it's going to be similar to L.A. Noire in the way that it kind of explores the human experience a bit. I think it's going to be a little bit mind-bendy in some ways. I'm really looking forward to Detroit, as long as it reviews well. If it turns out that it's not fun to play, then maybe I'll just watch the YouTube videos of it, because it looks interesting. The question is it fun to play? Who knows?
Yeah, sure.
God of War continues to look great. That son character is super cool. I didn't realize how much he's going to help you as this assistant in these battles. But again, it's just looking really, really fun. I think God of War is going to be great. And this time they said early 2018 was the date that they listed for God of War. So,
yeah, it's going to be great.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. I'm thinking February, March, but they haven't given a date for that yet. Who knows? And then, of course, they showed a little more of Horizon Zero Dawn, as well as, by the way, Monster Hunter Worlds. There's going to be a special mode for the PS4 version where you can play as Aloy and use her bow and that kind of stuff in Monster Hunter. So there you go.
I know this sounds stupid, but that's kind of like a selling point, because I have Xbox. I have Xbox currency, and I was thinking about getting Monster Hunter because I think it looks good. I was like, well, why not just get it on the Xbox One X? It's going to look just as good as the PS4 Pro, if not better. So I have the money. Let's just pre-order it. And I've held off just in case, as we get closer, maybe A, the game isn't as good as I'm hoping it will be, or this, where, you could play as her, which I would absolutely love to do that. Is it worth paying $60 on the PS4 instead of the one? I don't know, but it does look good.
Yeah, it is a good selling point. It kind of takes me back to the old Soul Calibur days when each system had their own special character to fight with.
So where's Master Chief for the Xbox
Yeah,
version?
I'm curious. Will there be will Microsoft have something?
Well,
for
and here's the other reason why I'd want Master Chief, because he wouldn't have to use all that melee bullcrap. He'd just walk out there and start shooting all these animals, and it'd be like game over in like the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, if they did use a Microsoft character, I have no idea who it would be who would fit in that Monster Hunter, because Aloy fits in the Monster Hunter universe.
You would
in
need
terms of
like
armor
a
and weapons.
melee only type character. Like, so
Yeah, I'm
what
not sure who they would
game
use.
do they have own rights to that you could do that?
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see. I'm not sure who. Maybe it is Master Chief, but all he can use is the energy sword. All right, they did show a little more in-depth gameplay for Shadow of the Colossus, and that game looks beautiful.
Looks good, but
It looks really great.
as I was watching this, and this was the question I was asking, because the reason I didn't like Shadow of the Colossus is I bought it on PS3 and I found it to be unplayable control-wise, is I'm watching this trailer and it doesn't feel like it was actual gameplay, because the camera, the way it was like moving around where you could see the beast, but you didn't always see your character. I was like, this seems more like a trailer than actual footage of gameplay.
It could have been a combo of both, because it did have the reticule while you were trying to aim the bow and stuff. So it could have been a
it was a
combination
little
of
weird, and with me not trusting their controls, unless they're redesigning them completely. And this is, again, what was the game that came out last year that I was kind of interested in, but the controls, I hated them?
Last Guardian?
Yeah, so if it's like that, screw it. I'm not wasting my time with that crap.
Yeah, I hope they sharpen some of that up, especially the detection of the character. A lot of times you jumped and it did wacky things. I'll admit that about that game. The controls, same thing with Last Guardian. I hope it's sharpened up a bit with all the visual improvements. I hope that
But yes, it does actually look
it looks beautiful.
like something I would like, but I have my concerns.
I do still love that game. It's near the top of my all-time list, but I can acknowledge its flaws. Especially now, we've played so many better games that control way better and more sharply since then, that it's not gonna feel right if they haven't sharpened that up. So hopefully they do. And then they closed things out with I thought a stunning trailer for The Last of Us Part 2. And it looks amazing. It kind of has a Nadine Ross type character from she reminded me of that from Uncharted.
Her build is, if you're talking about the
this
one that's getting choked.
Yeah,
it's
the
her
mostly
build,
beast
yeah.
one who gets strung up at the beginning. They're getting ready to hang.
They
her,
like
a
to
whole bunch of stuff
over
goes down.
exaggerate the size and how strong women are, because they're
They do.
SJWs.
They
Screw
do.
you, Naughty Dog.
She looks. I wouldn't mess with her. When I saw those guns, I was like, nope, wouldn't mess with her. She would knock me out.
Yeah, so let me just say this before you get into like details of the trailer.
I wasn't gonna break down any details. I was just gonna say it looks great. Go watch it if you're interested.
Yeah.
I won't spoil anything about it, but boy, I think it looks fascinating. Go ahead.
Well, see, when it first came on, I was like, oh, it's The Last of Us 2. And then as it started playing out, I'm like, is it? Like, at first I was like, okay, this is definitely Ellie's mom. But then towards the end, I was thinking it was Days Gone. But then when you see at the very end the enemy, then you're like, oh, it's The Last of Us 2. But I definitely thought it was really well done. I kind of liked how, and again, I watched the interview with Neil Druckmann or whatever his name is.
Drunkman.
It's a really good game. But I watched the interview with him on Game Trailers, and he was basically saying that they wanted to show, instead of just showing Joel and Ellie, they wanted to show a different cast of characters in this world. And then he kind of hinted that he was like, we're not going to tell you who they are. We're going to let the fans think on it. And then that's when I had already thought this, but then when he said that, I was like, I definitely think he wants us to think this is Ellie's mom. And so I do think it is Ellie's mom, without spoiling it. But for those who are interested, go check it out. I do think we are watching footage of Ellie's mom before Ellie was born, and I think it's pretty cool that they're giving us maybe potentially more of a backstory of all of these characters and what happened, because they also refer to is it tickers? Not tickers. What are they called?
The clickers.
Clickers. they refer to them as demons.
Right.
They don't call them clickers. So this definitely seems like it's pre-Last of Us, which is pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah, the whole post-apocalyptic setting, as I thought with the first game, and what we saw here briefly, it's just kind of like better versions of Walking Dead all around, basically.
Yeah, and it doesn't like this look like more like a trailer than gameplay, obviously.
Definitely.
But
yeah.
especially watching again the interview with Neil, they have already talked about how they've improved over the kind of like we were talking about with Sucker Punch. They've improved since the existence of the PS4 on building their Naughty Dog system to create the best looking games that they can create with this PS4. And I can only imagine how beautiful this game is going to be.
I think it's going to look great. I just want it to be a little more fun to play. You know, people are going to shoot me for saying this, but I thought The Last of Us, as fun as most of that game was, sometimes the gameplay itself was like, I think other games have done this part better. The melee, the shooting, even the stealth parts, they all worked fine, but they weren't great. So my hope is that
there was times, and I've played that game I think 5 times now. There was times where like when I would do melee and it would miss, like the hit detection was off and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's not a flawless game, but I have to say out of all of Naughty Dog's games, mainly the 2 franchises I care about, The Last of Us is the one I prefer over Uncharted. I find Uncharted to be kind of like your arcade shooter, whereas this would
and the
be
melee
more
in
of
Uncharted
your
is laughable. The melee in Uncharted is like
yeah. And this is more like your sim type game where it's like we want you to experience what it would be like with limited resources, but it's not a horror game. Which I like, because one of the things I like about horror games is I like the survival aspect. What I don't like about horror games is the horror aspect.
Yep.
So if you can take that out or limit it, because there is still some freaky parts in The Last of Us, if you can limit it and make it more about survival and less about horror, then I'm all for it. So I do prefer the Last of Us style gameplay over Uncharted, but that's not to say I don't love Uncharted. But I'm really excited about this. Like,
great way to end the show, because they started the show off with a brand new IP from a developer that we've all been waiting to hear what Sucker Punch working on. So that was nice, and then they wrapped it up with something that they've already teased at E3, but we're getting a little more insight into the direction they might be going with it. So really, really great overall presentation. I didn't expect us to be reviewing a media showcase. I didn't expect to get a full-on, E3. It was an E3 style presentation, and it was really fun to get that in the
exactly like E3. And like I said, they nailed it. I think they did it better than their E3 show. It also makes me think that, for just real quick before we move into Mario, and I'm excited about talking about Mario, but I think for PSX, one of the games we're going to get an actual date would be Days Gone. I think
they didn't talk about that at all, did they?
Exactly. They skipped over that. So I really think they're going to nail down a early 2018, maybe mid-year 2018 date for that.
Right? Like we've been talking about.
Yeah. And Sony has done it. Sony, it's weird. Sony is like the opposite of Microsoft
was a June
right
release,
now. Yeah.
So
they're opposite of Microsoft. Microsoft puts all their stuff at the end of the year. Sony has gotten in this rhythm where they're like, oh, we'll release a few things at the end of the year, and they're usually not like. I get that Gran Turismo is big to a certain extent sales wise, but it's not an exciting title. Just like I don't think Forza 7 is an exciting title. I get that it sells well, but it's not exciting. But it seems like Sony's really gotten into a pattern where they're like, all of our new and exciting exclusive games, we're going to try to release them in that first 6 months, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% anticipating a Days Gone deep dive at PSX, as well as a Bloodborne 2 reveal at PSX. That's what I'm thinking. We'll see. Alrighty, let's talk about Super Mario Galaxy, Super Mario Odyssey. We're going to shift gears away from Sony and focus our attention on Nintendo. Not to say we don't owe any love to Xbox, because here coming up in about a week and a couple days,
I'll be talking.
Derek will be talking all about his One X and telling us all why it's amazing, and trying to convince me to get one, because I am kind of at that point where I'm thinking about upgrading one of my systems, and I'm kind of battling back and forth. We know which one I go with. So I'll be interested to hear what Derek has to say as he reviews the Xbox One X here in a couple weeks. But for right now, we're going to just stay focused on Nintendo. Okay, so Sony got some love, Nintendo got some love, Microsoft yours is coming soon. But Mario Odyssey is here. It's finally here. They announced this game not even when did they announce this game? It was probably January?
Yeah, it wasn't a very long time.
Yeah, so they announced this game. It was obviously very far along in development, but we were all kind of expecting a 2018 release. They said it's coming in the fall. We said, yeah, right. Then they gave us the date. We said, okay, sure, but it'll get delayed. And no, here it is. Mario Odyssey is out. It's available. You can download it to your Switch. You can go buy it in the store. It's available right now.
Heck, we thought this game and Xenoblades 2 would be delayed to 2018.
There's no way. But they're both.
Nintendo's been like, you know nothing.
Crazy.
Jon Snow.
It makes me a little nervous when I see Sony's lineup for 2018 and knowing the third-party lineup that Sony and Microsoft will enjoy in 2018. I'm still wondering. I know Nintendo's got a few things they've talked about for 2018, but I'm still curious. Will they be able to follow up this stellar year?
I not to deviate from what we're going to talk about with Mario, but yes, I do think so. I think the way they're playing the release of their games like Bethesda, and that is we only talk about it when it's about 6 or 7 months out, and we're going to hit you with stuff at least once every month, maybe once every 2 months, which is fine if they get in a pattern, especially with, like you said, third parties going crazy in 2018.
Yeah. Well, they got
and apparently Sony's going ballistic because 2017 and 2018 or 2018 shaping up like 2017. And 2017 for PlayStation was outstanding. They easily nailed it with all their exclusives.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm surprised as just about anyone that Nintendo didn't push back some of these big titles they announced for the end of the year. And Mario Odyssey is here, including a Bowser that's looking as dapper as ever in his white suit and his white top hat with spikes on it. I'm still wondering how he put that jacket on. You know, his shell's on the outside of the jacket, and I'm not sure exactly how that worked, but whatever.
He
Maybe
cut
he
a
can take his
hole
shell
through
off.
it.
Yeah. It's not very realistic, but whatever. So yeah, the game opens right away as Bowser's making this major romantic play at Peach. By romantic, I mean kidnapped her and he's going to force her to marry him.
So the exact way I got my wife, Megan.
Yeah, it's pretty much the Derek Teague story. That should be the byline for this.
Pretty much. That's my line to all the girls. I'm like, we've been in a relationship for like 2 years, and they'll be like, we've never dated. I'm like, as soon as I say we're dating is when the relationship starts. So It really doesn't matter if you consent at all.
Exactly. Well, and what I like is that this game right out of the gate establishes that, hey, this whole experience, this whole adventure is going to be centered around hats. Hats are really the key point of this game. And it starts right away as Bowser throws his hat at you. It misses you, but then it comes back and knocks Mario off the airship, and that's where things begin. Mario's adventure trying to track down Bowser and rescue the princess once again. So, before we go too far into it, just to acknowledge that, yes, Nintendo clearly stuck in the medieval ages. They still have a damsel in distress being rescued by a man. I am just as outraged as most of you, right? It should be the other way around. It's very sad that Peach yet again has to be rescued, but it is what it is. Nintendo clearly is misogynistic and hates women, but their game is really fun, so that's okay.
Or here's a thought, just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
They know they sell very well off nostalgia. I'm not saying that Mario's only good because of nostalgia. And so they repeat their stories, that would be Zelda, Mario, because when you play them, you get those nostalgic feelings. And it reminds you of the past games. So that's why they keep redoing it. It's amazing. I'm only saying this not based off what you just said. I knew you were joking. But like stuff,
totally sarcastic. Yeah.
The stuff I was seeing in like bigger groups, they were just talking about only Nintendo can get away with rehashing the same story. And I'm like, are you really upset about this? You do realize they make these games for the gameplay. Like they don't, the story is just there to give you a reason to play the game. Right. And that they don't care about the story. It's just nostalgic on purpose.
Absolutely.
I cannot
believe.
believe.
Little spoiler alert for when we get to our Game of the Year debates at the end of this year. Neither one of those games you just mentioned, Zelda or Mario, are anywhere close to the top of my lists for best story. They're just not. But they're going to be at the top of my list for things that are just plain fun or super charm, whatever other kind of categories we come up with. just overall best game, they're going to be up in that conversation.
I did like Zelda's story. It is the
Zelda's
same
story's
story,
okay,
but the way they
yeah.
did it was definitely cooler and a little more emotional.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, it's the same thing.
It's okay. But yeah, people need to let that go. And of course, I'm just being facetious. I think it's ridiculous when people make this kind of complaint about this game. Just let it be an old classic fairy tale. Don't get your whatever is all up in a bunch. Just play the game and have fun. It is a lot of fun. And by the way, go back and play some older Mario games where you can play as Princess. She's by far the best character in some of the other games. You're gonna be.
She's
fine.
never the best character. The one character
She's
I
the best
hated,
character in Mario Brothers 2, without a doubt.
the one character I've always hated in Mario Kart, the one, is the terrible female driver who keeps hitting me with everything, and that is Princess Peach. I hate her, and I called her. Her name was Princess Bitch.
Well, Derek, I think we've established right now that you are part of the problem. Okay,
Well,
so
I'm
this
sexist.
this game is clearly all about hats, especially the main companion that you meet up with right away in the game, and that is Cappy, this cute little white top hat who then transforms into Mario's hat, and then a captain's hat, and other hats throughout the game.
Yeah.
He's your new little buddy, and he's awesome. He gives you this new power to throw your hat kind of like a boomerang or frisbee, and you can either hold it so it stays there and does damage to boxes or enemies, or if you want to jump off of it to get an extra little boost, or to capture stuff, to grab coins. You can use it for all different kinds of things, to activate switches. So that mechanic is used throughout the game in some pretty creative ways, which we will get to. So first of all, how much have you played? I want to make sure I don't say too much, because some of the joy of this game, and just for you listening too, whether it's you, Derek, or you listening to the podcast, you listeners, I'm not going to share about all these cool things they do, because part of the fun is experiencing, wow, that was a really cool way they used that mechanic. So
Yeah.
I want to talk in very general terms, not to spoil any story stuff we've talked about. There is no way to spoil the story, but I don't want to spoil the gameplay, because there's those moments of, oh, that's awesome, that's what you have to do, and I don't want to ruin those moments. But how much have you played? How far are you?
I'm through 5 areas.
Okay, so you're far enough in. We can talk about some of the general gameplay stuff then.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So let's talk real quick. What do you think about the? And by the way, I'm a little farther than that. I've probably uncovered 7 worlds, I think, something like that. But
Okay.
not too much farther than you are. So what do you think about the overall world setup, the way you travel between worlds, and just the way that you go into each area, the way each area is set up? What do you think about that so far, and which Mario do you think it compares to the most?
Well, it's definitely got like a Mario 64 and Mario Sunshine vibe to it. I lean heavier on the Sunshine vibe because that's my favorite Mario. But to answer your first question, I love it. I like how open it is. Again, remember, and I told the listeners, besides seeing like the original trailer or announcement of it, I haven't really done a lot of research on the game. I've seen a few things, but I haven't like sat there and just watched people play the game and studied it and all that. So I didn't really know what I was getting into, and I'd heard how it's borrowing from Zelda. So I said this on the podcast, and you kind of corrected me, and I was like, is it like an open world? It's more open areas, like there's regions that you go to kind of type thing, and then you go in those regions and it's real open. There's even in one area, and again, I'm not spoiling it because I'm not going to go into details. There's like a little town you can go into, and you can go into some of the buildings, and there's some shops and stuff like that. And then there's your typical Mario-style levels, and that's where you're going to try to advance using, your jumping abilities and your skills to unlock moons. And that was one of the things I really like, is I like that there's a lot of moons, so I always feel like I'm doing something.
Yeah, and they're everywhere. They're tucked in all these different corners. You can, if you see a little glow spot on the ground, you can butt stomp it, and then boom, a moon pops up. And by the way, moons are the de facto stars for past Mario games. Now you're collecting moons, and they do the same kind of thing. They give you access in some way, shape, or form to the next areas, and there's just tons to collect. Even when you go back to areas, there's just, the little rows along the top start to build up, and you can just start collecting tons of these things.
That's what I was saying. Like, it feels like, like for instance, I'll use an example. I really liked Mario 3D World. But in that game, I think every level, and I could be wrong, I'm going off memory, I haven't played it recently. But every level you went into, there was usually 2 to 3 stars I think you could get. There was the 1 star for completing the level, and then the other 2 were usually pretty well hidden. They were some type of secret. And I'm not the most patient gamer, especially with platformers, so I'm not the type that's going to sit there and check every nook and cranny and hope that I find it. I'm usually just the type that's like, I'm just going to go through the level. If I run into one, cool. If I don't, then I'm getting the 1 star. The problem with that, with those games, the way they were set up, is they kind of blocked you. Like, well, you can't advance because you really needed to average about 2 to 3 stars per level. This one, it's the same type of system. Like, you can't advance if you don't get enough moons. But the difference for me, at least personally, is the moons are a lot easier to get because there's a lot more. There are still really good secret ones that I've unlocked on my own that made me feel good. Like, oh, I found that on my own.
Yep.
But
like I just saw this little rabbit sitting there, and I decided to chase him, and all of a sudden I bumped into him on one corner. I finally caught him, and he just spit out a moon and ran away.
Yep.
Little things like that. The game didn't tell me to do that.
Yeah.
Those little moments that they include in this are really great.
Yeah.
I actually think it does compare a lot with Mario 64 because of the openness of the castle. Of course, Mario 64 has that hub world of the castle where you can explore, and then you jump into paintings, and you go into these relatively open areas as well. So it reminds me of that in some ways, and in other ways, and I do see there's a Sunshine comparison too, by the way. Because of some of that openness. But I'm also reminded a lot of Galaxy because you're going from area to area. They're relatively big. It's not the same as Galaxy, but it's similar in the way that you move around the overworld, number one, but also in the way that they just continue to show you these new gameplay elements that you might only use for half a level, and then it's over. And I think Galaxy did that a lot. And they do this in this game so far. There's certain creatures or characters that you'll take over, but it's really only used in that one level for that one moon or 2 moons maybe. So that in that case,
constantly changing it up.
Yeah, because Galaxy, what I think the brilliance of Galaxy was, you pretty much had a different experience in every planet that you landed on in Galaxy, and I thought that was brilliant. They did a great job of having its core Mario jumping and bopping gameplay while adding a new layer everywhere you went. And I think this game is doing some of that without overdoing it. And I really like the nice vibe of Mario 64 meets Mario Galaxy. And boy, it controls really well.
That's what I want to say. As somebody who's not a, of course, I'm going to forget the word. Jeez Louise, what is wrong with us recording on a Monday night and I can't remember?
It's not working great.
Platformer. As somebody who's not a big fan of platformers.
We're gonna the opening. We were like, and my name is crap. What is my name?
Tim. So as somebody who just doesn't like platformers in general, like I enjoyed Ori, but there was a reason for it. The way Ori looked, the story, even though it doesn't really have words or a lot of words, just everything about Ori, its aesthetics was charming to me. And then the game became a little more fun when I played it on an easier level, which I have no problem admitting I did. Mario games, I'm not a fanboy of Mario games. For instance, I liked Sunshine a lot. I don't think I ever beat it. I did beat Mario 3 and probably the original Super Mario, but I haven't beat many of them. I played maybe a couple planets on Mario Galaxy. Mainly because I hated the controls. So if that ever got re-released on the Switch and they just redid the controls, which they could totally do it, to play like Odyssey, then I would totally play that. But the reason I'm bringing this up is, as somebody who's not a big fan of platformers, I feel like a lot of people who don't like Nintendo or don't like the fact that Nintendo repeats things, they kind of miss what Mario's about, because they'll try to simplify it with, it's just the same running and jumping and the same thing. You're doing the same thing. Honestly, it's not. Sure, there are, just like if you play a Final Fantasy game, Final Fantasy 15 plays completely different than Final Fantasy 7, but there are still things like enemies and things in the game that you're like, oh, I've seen that before.
Yeah, like when you get
Same thing with Mario.
You get a Phoenix down, you know what that does.
Yeah,
you know,
like one of the moons that I got, I ended up throwing Cappy at a bullet, and the bullet flew me over to the moon, because as I located that moon, I was like, I have no way of getting over there.
Yeah.
no way. And then I was like, oh, I can ride the bullet. That type of stuff. But I've seen the bullets before. They're in all the Mario games. But so even though they use familiar things and it looks the same, the fact that they change everything up, and I'm not hyping this game up just to hype it. I told Rudy, and I meant it, and I'm telling the listeners now, people that trust me, if I don't like this game or I think it's bland or boring, I'm gonna say it. And this is just me being honest. Yesterday was the first time I really got to sit down and play it, because I had played it for like 20 minutes, and then Eli was actually playing it Saturday. So he advanced the game, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I got in and I was like, why am I here? I didn't recognize where I was. And so I kind of went back to the previous area where I was, and I started playing it. And after an hour, I was like, oh, I should get off. Thinking I need to go back to Assassin's Creed Origins, because that's the main one I'm trying to focus on. And I just kept playing it. And then I was like, well, let's just beat this one more area. And then I would beat this one more area, and then I kept playing it. And then 3.5 hours later, I was still playing this game. And so that's when I knew it kind of hooked me, because these aren't the type of games that normally do that. To the point where I was like, I want to come home tonight and play it. But again, I'm trying to stay focused on Assassin's Creed Origins. But it's really that good. And like I said, they use similar things that you've seen in Mario games before. But this isn't the same old, just jump here and avoid this. There's a lot more to it. One of the other things I want to mention, I guess, early on in the game they are simple, but as somebody who sucks at these games, I really appreciate the boss fights. While they might be simplistic, they're still really fun and kind of challenging in a way.
They're funny, yeah.
Yeah, so I've actually had a lot of fun.
Each one has its own little thing you have to do, like, I just have to hit it from this angle, or I have to take over that thing first. Got it. Like, they each have their own little twists.
Yeah. So they've got and again, I imagine it's going to get harder as I go through.
Oh, yeah.
But so far, I've figured it out on my own without, I don't even know if I've died on one boss battle yet. But, you know what, I did. I died on the rock with fists. But
that was
other
a really
than that,
fun boss fight, too, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, and a quick note to those of you who have kids and you're wondering, can my kids play this? Actually,
Yes.
my kids are playing it right now. They're getting ready to go to bed here in about 10 minutes, but they're playing it right now, and my 6-year-old is playing it. And they're all sitting around watching him, giving him advice, that kind of thing. And he has not, and a lot of times when he plays games, he'll hand me the controller to take care of a tough boss or a tough jump.
Yeah.
And he's just been doing a fine job. And there is what's called an assist mode. Because it is such each area is very open, and you can go whatever direction you want and turn the camera whatever angle you want. The assist mode, it does two things. Number one, it provides blue arrows on the ground and sometimes over your head to tell you where you should be heading. And so for a little kid who can get very easily disoriented in a completely 3D area,
it's a really
I highly
cool thing.
recommend using assist mode. It also is very forgiving with health. It gives you extra hits, and your health will regain if you stand still for a few seconds. So it's a nice, basically easy mode for your young kids, or for you, the gamer, if you just want to not have too much of a challenge, you could do it that way too. Just so you know, assist mode is there right out of the gate, and you can activate it through the options menu whenever you want. Let's talk real quick about how this thing looks, because that was the first thing I noticed when I fired this up.
Yeah.
I think this game looks gorgeous. I think it holds up compared to
Not 4K.
Maybe not 4K.
Not
it is
4K.
not 4K, but I'm pretty sure it's 1080 at 60. I'm pretty sure.
It's actually, I think it's 900p.
Is it 900? But I'm pretty sure it is locked at 60.
Which is
Could be wrong
good.
about that.
It looks good. It looks good like Zelda.
Looks great.
Like right now, in fact, what I'm recording on is I moved my little 1080p PlayStation monitor over here. That's what I'm playing it on.
Okay.
And that was the monitor I've told all the listeners. It's very vibrant. It looks almost like it's 4K because it's so beautiful.
I think it looks good on your handheld. That's of course 720.
Oh yeah.
It's very smooth. It looks really pretty. But then I played it that way this weekend because I was traveling and I had it with me the whole weekend. Now when I brought it home and docked it, and I've been playing it some today on the big screen, I think it looks amazing. I think it looks really great. There's certain textures. There's certain grass textures that I think, of course, would look a little bit better on a PS4 Pro or Xbox One or whatever. But for the most part, I am incredibly impressed. I have had no slowdowns. It's been very smooth, and I think the visuals really pop. I think it looks great.
It's got a great color palette,
yes,
which really helps.
It's all about that art design, man. When they do a good art design, you can overcome lots of shortcomings.
That's why I think Zelda and this game, and even Fire Emblem Warriors, which we haven't talked a lot about, but that game you can tell it's got its ridgy edges and it's not as pretty as the 4K games I'm playing, but it still looks good with the art design. It's kind of got that cartoony look, and it's got those vibrant colors that just stick out, and so it's really well done. That's something to me nobody does better than Nintendo. Nintendo knows how to make people. Again, this is another thing they get mocked for. Really, we're in 2017 and you're running 900p games and we have 4K. It's like, guys, honestly, P's, and this is coming from somebody who loves this 4K. P's don't matter if you know how to do it. I've said it and I'll say it again in case people didn't hear me. Horizon Zero Dawn is not a native 4K game, but if you put it on my 4K TV on the PS4 Pro, I think it runs at 1800p. Cannot tell the difference, honestly, with that game than most native 4K games. I guarantee if I was playing in native 4K, I can tell the difference. Because I haven't talked about this on the show, and I'll say it real quick. I have Destiny 2 on the PC, and people mock me and say, oh, you can't tell the difference, you wear glasses, that's crank freaking flark. But I have both versions. I have the PS4 Pro version, which runs at 4K, like dynamic 4K, which isn't native. It looks great. I felt like it looked native 4K. I then put it on my PC, put it on native 4K at 60 frames per second. Honest to God, it looks different. You can tell the difference. It's how clean it can be. But my point I was trying to make is Destiny on even the PS4 Pro is so well done, it's hard to tell unless you are literally side by side. Same thing with Nintendo games. They are designed so well. They are put together so well. Yes, they are lower P. You can tell. But it's hard to get distracted. Like, they're not ugly games. Like, I don't look at them and go, Zelda's gross. No, I look at Zelda and go, I'd love to play it at 1080p or 4K, but it's actually pretty the way it is. It's fine.
Well, and the way that they've built the worlds in both of these two games, and I will say this for Mario too, the draw distance, from what I can see, appears to be amazing. You can see for long distances.
I think they put the technical before the. When I say technical, they put like the world and your draw distances and the frames per second. They put all that before looks, or Ps, I should say, because the art design is the look. But the Ps are probably secondary on Nintendo's.
And I think that was a smart move. It runs smoothly on this little system. And, boy, it looks really great. The creativity, of course, off the charts as well. I thought that it would be really awkward when I got to Metro City with the humans, but I think it's actually a funny touch because it's so different from the other kingdoms. Every kingdom is very different as you travel from place to place. So I thought that was pretty cool. The writing is actually kind of clever and funny if you read it all, but you don't need to. You can skip through all the dialogue and just go where you want to go. But I do think it's very creative. Their puzzles are great. The boss fights, like you mentioned, are very easy so far, but still fun. And I do like the periodic shift to old school 2D. It's a nice throwback. It's a nice way to kind of just give a little love to the old 2D style, the old original Mario Bros. Style. That's not amazing. They're usually really short areas, but it's kind of cool when you all of a sudden shift into the wall. Kind of like the Zelda Link Between Worlds way that you would shift into the wall and look like a pixelated version. And of course, like we talked about, there are secrets everywhere. There's new outfits you can unlock, you can purchase with either your main gold coins or with specialized purple coins. Each area has their own currency that you can earn. They're also usually hidden, by the way, those coins. Those come with hats. I don't think any of that stuff comes with additional abilities, as far as I can tell. It looks mostly aesthetic, I think, but it does sometimes allow you access to areas you couldn't get before. You have to have a certain outfit on to access certain things.
Yeah.
So, and I could go on and on about all the details here, but just so you guys know, this is just a flat-out fun video game.
Yeah.
Again, it's not going to win best, writing or story or anything like that. I'm not saying it should be turned into a movie like The Last of Us or something like that, but it is very much, to me, it's the essence of what makes video games fun and joyful, and this captures that completely, and it is an absolute blast to play. Can't recommend it enough. And I don't know if it'll be my favorite game of the year, but right now it's the only thing I want to play. It just makes me smile while I play it. It's really, really fun. So it doesn't scratch the itch of wanting to be stealthy or go shoot bad guys. Of course, I want to do that in other games, but it basically is all I want when I want to sit down and just have fun. This one does it. So I love
Yeah,
it.
and I
Highly
think it's
recommend it.
important that we allow games to do that. And I'm not saying everybody's like this, but I think we've gotten to a point where every new game that comes out, and this isn't just to protect Nintendo, we expect them to have a grand story or cinematics and all these things, and it's like sometimes, especially somebody who went from being a really story heavy, like I want my games to have some type of twist or some type of dark, deep story, to now I put more focus on gameplay. I'm starting, I think, and this is probably why I appreciate Super Mario Odyssey more than maybe past Mario games, is I didn't like the old, like a good example would be Mario Galaxy. I didn't care about Mario Galaxy because I knew I wasn't going to get a story out of that. I just was going to get gameplay, and for that particular game, I didn't like the controls, and that has nothing to do with the game controlling bad. So I just set it aside and was like, that's not for me. I don't care about it. Like, I had no feelings towards it. I think we've gotten into that state where a lot of games are, well, Nintendo has to make games this way. Games can just be fun to play and not have, they shouldn't be required to have a good story.
Absolutely.
Like Bloodborne and Dark Souls, of course there are people that have defended it, and I, to a certain extent, I get it. I've learned the stories of those games, and I do like them. But they do not put story first. They do not elevate cutscenes and story. They are more focused on the gameplay.
Yep.
They are fun
and challenging to play.
Yeah, fun and challenging. And that's what Mario is. It's fun. Maybe this one's a little bit easier than past Marios. Again, I'm not an expert on it.
Parts of it are, but there's parts that I've run into that I'm like, wow, that's going to be a tough jump or whatever. Yeah.
There are some challenging aspects to it. But again, they've also allowed us, for those who suck at these games, to go, hey, you're struggling with this? Turn on assist mode. So I like that.
And I'll say this as we wrap this up. I will say this to those of you listening who aren't Mario guys. Okay, maybe you're thinking about getting a Switch. Maybe you already have one, but just Mario isn't your thing. And I know I've talked to a few of you. I highly recommend that you give this game a shot. So if you are able to, at your store, Best Buy, Target, if they've got a kiosk, just play it and see how it feels. And if it intrigues you at all, if it feels good to move around and jump, just give this game a try. It is so creative. I'm not talking about you have to have a kid next to you to enjoy it, because that is fun too.
I've yet to play
you as
with
an
one of my
adult
kids.
can play it all by yourself and have a blast with this game. I'm not saying it's like going back and watching old cartoons or anything like that. It literally is a fun, creative, absolutely innovative game yet again. And I think even though the characters are the same and a lot of the settings look the same and the concept of what Bowser is doing and how you're trying to stop him, those things are all similar. But the gameplay elements themselves are very different. And they're much improved. There's a new twist on everything. I highly recommend you give this game a shot. If you own a Switch, there's no reason that you shouldn't get this game. It is fantastic.
Well, as somebody, again, that's not a Mario fanboy and was excited for this title, but also kind of like, well, am I really going to like it? If you are on the fence, I would highly suggest, like you said, playing it. I would say go
just go get it.
I would go as far as saying just go get it.
Just go
get it from Best Buy, $48, and it's well worth it. It's a lot of fun by yourself or with your kids. Like I said, I've played probably about 3.5, 4 hours, and I haven't once played with one of my kids. Now, Eli's played it, but we haven't played it together. So it's not required that you have to buy this for your kids.
Absolutely. And a lot of people look at these games that way. Like, yeah, if I have kids, I'll play. No, get this game and play it. Forget about whether or not you have kids to play it. It's really, really fun. Highly, highly recommended.
Yep.
All right, well, that does it for episode 95. We're going to record, hopefully, here in another couple days to talk about Assassin's Creed Origins. We'll give a similar breakdown on what we think of that game and what has it been like with the 2 years off for this major franchise. Did Ubisoft do this series justice by giving it some time to breathe? We'll dig into that next week. So thanks for listening this time, and we'll catch you next week.
Who is your daddy? I am your father.
You fathers will understand.
My father taught me many things.
I got an idea. How about you all sit there quietly while I make dad noises?